We're live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 89 of Bank to the Future Live. Today, we're going to be making a couple of announcements up front, but the bulk of this is going to be with the team from Ohanae, an exciting new project that is the pitch has just gone live on Bank to the Future to our premium members. And by the end of day tomorrow, it will be open up beyond our premium members if there's any allocation left. I think it's had about 65% subscription from 35 investors at the premium stage. And that was in the first 24 hours. So a couple of announcements, as we said in the email. And then the second half will be opening up to your questions and answers, where you can ask myself and the Ohanae team, which I will be introducing shortly, any questions that you would like. So the first thing is that the FV Bank pitch in the first 6 days, it's completely oversubscribed, and they have agreed to open up to sell a bit more equity. So that one is going to be closing early. The rules of overfunding are that once a company is overfunding, the company has the right to close early if they don't want to sell any more equity. So that one will be closing at any stage. So make sure you check that one out if you had it on your to avoid any disappointment there. And the second one is really just setting the scene for my enhanced passion around security tokens. So if any of you have been following the Bank to the Future Live for a while, we're on our 89th episode now. At the beginning of this year, before all of the lockdowns, at the beginning of last year rather, before all the lockdowns, we were talking about our investment trends that we're looking at and looking to support and grow in the ecosystem. The three we were talking about crypto-friendly banking, we were talking about DeFi, and we were talking about security tokens. Now, a couple of experiences that we've had recently with security tokens, or wishing they were security tokens, was dealing with one of our portfolio companies that recently exited, which was Coinbase. And Coinbase, are platform investors. We're investors in the private round. And we're still at the stage where we're issuing the public stock, swapping out their private stock for their public stock. And because it wasn't done via a security token, or it wasn't done via a blockchain, we are still dealing with about 50 different middle people involved in that transaction. And our investors are all trying to get their DTC numbers so that they can have them transferred and swapped out. It's just a really, really clunky process. Now, because this was the first company that went public that was part of our portfolio companies as a private company, we've obviously heightened those processes a lot. So the next time it happens, I think it can be done a lot better. But really, this brings us full circle. One of our other portfolio companies, Exodus, they just did a Reg A plus offering, which means that they were open up to many US investors, and they got it all signed off by the Securities and Exchange Commission in the United States. And they did it all via a security token. And now when that company is looking to list on other exchanges, the process, hopefully, when we test this out, will be a lot smoother, thanks to being able to do this through and via security tokens. So really, that brings us full circle to the main topic of today, and that is that we've got the Ohanae team with us. So Ohanae consists of a couple of different companies within the group. So we have Greg here, who's the CEO, founder, and chairman of Ohanae, and he's going to be focusing on giving us a bit of a demo of the technology that they built and what the company that is looking and seeking funding at the moment. And we've also got the CEO of Ohanae Securities, which is the broker-dealer part, and Gerard will correct me if anything I've got wrong there, but Gerard, we've worked with previously in different capacities, in different roles. He's a bit of a veteran in the broker-dealer space, and ensuring that these things are really done in line with many of the compliance and regulatory requirements. So it's great to have Gerard on the show as well as Greg. So gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
So Greg, why don't you kick us off with a bit of the vision behind Ohanae, maybe where the name came from and what you're up to, what you're looking to bring to market.
Yeah, sure. Ohanae, the name, came from the word Ohana in Hawaiian means family. And this word is also very popular from the cartoon, the Lilo and Stitch. And by the way, the Lilo and Stitch, the musical is coming to Broadway soon. And what we do, Ohanae is a fully integrated platform designed for special purpose broker-dealer, which I will explain, to help issuers to raise funds using equity token and facilitate secondary trading through alternative trading system using a technology called automated market maker, pioneer championed by the Uniswap. At the same time, transaction is based on a platform coin, which is equivalent to the stablecoin, 24/7, 365 days a year. So that is what we do. So the one analogy that everybody should be able to understand what I just said will be, assuming three of us, myself, the Gerard, and Simon, we actually go to Las Vegas. We went into MGM resort. I pull out from my pocket $1,000. I go to the cashier. The cashier gave me 1,000 worth of chips. Since we just want to have fun, I will split the chips 300, and I keep the 400. We go to the different table, blackjack or poker table. After an hour, we move on to the next casino. The same chip can be used, but we cannot use the chip to buy a cup of coffee from Starbucks. And at the end of the day, we can actually cash out from any cashier by surrendering my chips, my photo ID. It could be a driver's license or passport, and I get back the balance of the cash, and we go out for dinner. So the analogy that I just explained, the casino chip is really the platform coin, the stable coin. That is that you could transact at any casino, and the casino chain is really the blockchain, and the deal are really the poker table or the blackjack table, vetted because they are regulated. Okay, so this is really the analogy that I want to relate the real life situation to what we call the new kind of the investment bank. New kind of investment bank, the really April 27, SEC published a statement that any broker who are prepared to carry out business in digital asset securities, the meaning the equity, it could be common or preferred, that is tokenized into a security token, or we call it equity token. And that is the only business that the broker-dealer do. And at the same time, the broker-dealer has the ability to safeguard fully paid digital asset, the security, and cash. And the idea is to protect the investor, to make sure in the event that the broker-dealer went under, or the asset and cash could be returned to the investor. So really, this is the high-level definition of special purpose broker-dealer. And we built the technology to empower this special purpose, the broker-dealer. And at the same time, to demonstrate the technology, we are implementing the technology through Ohanae the Security, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Ohanae Inc. And Gerard is the CEO and the CCO.
Okay, So, just before we jump into the technology, Gerard, why don't you give a brief intro to yourself and help the audience unpack some of this jargon? So, you've got broker dealers, then you've got this new one, the special purpose broker dealer, then you've got alternative trading systems, ATS. What does this all mean, and how does it all fit together?
Sure. So the idea of the Ohanae environment is to create sort of a closed environment where you're invited into this ecosystem that allows issuers and investors to transact and investors to other investors to transact. In this closed environment, real time, where transactions take place instantaneously, not only the issuance of securities to investors, but once the investor has the security, uh, and through the regulatory process of the time periods allowed from allowing the investors then to trade these securities freely, uh, there is a marketplace and an environment where investors can interact with each other, the issuers can interact with the investors. And because it's all done in a closed ecosystem, um, through the digital assets and the currency, everything is tied back to the accounts real time, securely and safely. The broker dealer, when it is approved to do all of this, will use the Ohanae technology to really keep all of these assets and these transactions safe and secure so that investors feel comfortable in this environment. And our goal is to grow the environment and invite more and more issuers and investors until it's really self-sustaining and it becomes a marketplace in and of itself.
Okay, so just for clarity, I think combining that all together, there's a holding company called Ohanae, and there's a subsidiary. Is it 100% owned? There's Ohanae Securities.
It is.
Yes,
Okay, and Ohanae Securities is already. So if you look them up on broker check, you could find Ohanae Securities. Is that correct now?
That is correct. That is
Okay.
correct.
And then it has these additional permissions that it's seeking with the SEC and FINRA to be able to do the ATS part, which allows for the trading if approved. And then also this special broker dealer, which is a new thing, which allows you to deal with tokenized and digital securities. Is there anything wrong in that?
No, that's correct. We have had conversations with the regulators regarding what Ohanae Securities will hopefully become in the future. We are going to do a demo of the technology in probably the next couple of weeks for the regulators, just to make sure that it is complete. We're trying to walk through this process with the regulators so that they see what we're trying to accomplish, and hopefully, for lack of a better term, since a regulator may not like this term, as a partnership, as we walk down this path, we sort of want the regulators to look over our shoulders to make sure that we're doing everything as compliantly as we can in this new environment.
Yeah. And again, just before we jump in, Greg, I will get to the technology and the Uniswap plant and all, and you're going to give a quick demo for us. One of my experiences of the old model is that the regulators like to have compartmentalization. They like to have, clearing agents. They like to have independent brokers. They like to have independent escrow accounts. They like to have it all separated, which creates lots of challenges with lots of middle people. But the promise of this technology is that really, and really what the cryptocurrency market did is it brought a lot of these people under one roof. How, from your experience, Gerard, are the regulators adapting to this new model? Are they embracing it? I know that a lot has changed in this environment, but or are they looking to keep these very compartmentalized, separate systems and ecosystems?
So that's a good question. I would say that we'll find out along the way. I have no crystal ball into this. Um, but the concept that we're creating here is something that would be akin to a prime brokerage type arrangement that's been done before, where the prime broker is interacting with the investor not only for trading, but for asset security as well, where the prime broker is not only trading, but they're also acting as custodian. And that in and of itself does have its challenges, because obviously if you compartmentalize some of this through different vendors, etc., there is a perceived notion that there are some protections along the way. And that may or may not be true. We've seen that work in the past. We've seen it fall apart in the past. It's our effort here to ensure that we're protecting investor assets, whether it's in currency or assets. And it just so happens that in this environment, we're trying to make it so that it is as protected as it would be in a traditional method, but under new methodology and new technology to allow this environment to flourish.
Okay. All right. Well, Greg, I'm just going to ask you a few questions on the tech side, then we can move into the demo before we take the audience and investors' questions. So the first one is, what different parts of the technology do we have? So the first part is a company comes along, just like Ohanae is now, or any of our other portfolio companies. They want to raise finance. So what technology solution have you got for companies that are seeking to raise finance?
So basically, to walk you through the process, we are targeting Series A type of companies who want to raise anything from 20 million to 75 million a year, with the potential probably for public the listing in a couple of years down the road. And we will basically start end to end. We have advisory services to help them build a financial model, build the institutional stuff, the investor deck, infographic. At the same time, to produce the video. But most importantly, we are producing town hall. And we believe why we need to do that is because retail investor might not be an expert in the domain that they're trying to invest. So there's a need is for us to educate in an hour or so. Different people are explaining the industry landscape. All the way, once we have done this, we work with the lawyer, with the appropriate the domain expertise. If you're in the real estate, in the fintech, slightly different. And since everything is tokenized, so we do need to have a lawyer who are well-versed in the domain plus blockchain to a certain extent. Then we need to work with the auditor because Reg A plus company need to be audited. For the last 2 years, financial, they are like a mini IPO company. Once that is done, we take the cap table, we do the tokenization, converting conventional shares into equity token, ERC, the 20 compliant, depending on the company, but technically most of the common stock are the same. But the issuer could restrict which country of the investor that they would not want them to participate in the offering. And then we do need a lot of partner. We believe company who want to raise 75 million a year is a big number. So we should not just do everything through the platform. There's a group of the investor in the US, about 14,000 of them, the institutional investor, that will still need high touch. You will still need that introduction, if possible, face to face. So really, the fundraise is a combination fundraise through the platform from retail investor, which for anyone who has got a driver's license or passport and a bank account, they could participate, no question asked. Once that is done, the idea of Reg A Plus is to also solve a problem that we can present to the investor is the investment actually it become liquid the day after the funding is closed. Now the shares could be traded on the ATS, and through the platform, new user who miss out is a round of the investment, they can still come into the platform, look at the material, and make a smart decision is to invest. And now when they make the investment, they are actually buying existing share from the current shareholder who want it to be traded. And that really leads in to private market access that we think we need a trading system or alternative trading system that without the need for a market maker. So that's the reason we have implemented the Uniswap in the platform, add a nice UI, and with that there will always be the liquidity at any time and it is a shareholder the wanting to sell their share, a new investor who wants to buy the share is instant, and everything is transacted through the platform coin that is the Ohanae coin, and there's no fees involved when you buy or sell shares. Okay, so that is the beauty.
So, so starting back to the primary offering. So at Bank to the Future, we often focus in Reg Ds, and then Reg Ds require, at least in the case of US investors, a 1-year lock-in. So, Gerard, help the audience understand a bit about this difference between Reg D, Reg CF, Reg A+. And then is Ohanae going to really focus on that Reg A+ area so that they can have retail investors and then the ability to almost be like public? And I guess the upside and the downside there is that the companies need to register and go through a rigorous process with the SEC, not quite a public offering, as if they were going public, but there is a process as opposed to Reg D where it's just a notification that they're raising finance. Maybe if you could walk through and help the audience understand a bit of these nuances.
Sure. Reg A Plus is what some people term as a mini IPO or pre-IPO, where an issuer will go through the process with the SEC as though they're going through a regular IPO process, but on a scaled down version of what is needed to apply and hopefully get clearance through the SEC for the issuer. And that includes a lot of the good checks that the regulators are involved with, going through the process with the issuer, looking at who the owners are, who the control people are, what the company business plan is. And as Greg alluded to, most of these companies are required to have audited financial statements, which is different than when you're going through the Reg D process for private companies in the same circumstances, where there can be a lot of due diligence, but most Reg D companies do not have the process of going through an audited financial examination, typically for at least a couple of years, check on books and records. And all of these features that are applied to Reg A Plus that aren't applied necessarily to Reg D deals, I can't say that it makes it safer in the way of an investment. All I can tell you is that there are more checks, or there are a lot of checks that are done, because it not only goes through the SEC's process, again, scaled down from a typical IPO, but a lot of Reg A Plus issuers work with broker dealers who also have to go through the FINRA process. Now, granted, with the FINRA process, FINRA is not looking at the issuer in the way that the SEC does. FINRA will look at the broker dealer and how it's interacting with the issuer to ensure that there's transparency regarding fees and the role of the broker dealer in this process. It is incumbent upon the broker dealer to do its own due diligence over and above what is presented to the SEC to ensure that the broker dealer understands what the customer is going to accomplish, understands what the proceeds are being used for, and doing its own due diligence checks. Know your customer, AML, and CIP, which is customer identification program. So there are quite a few checks that we do along the way. Typically, we actually do it for Reg A or Reg D. But with the Reg A process, there is a level that we aspire to that could be conceived as a little bit higher than Reg D. Again, going through the audited financials, there's more disclosure, there's more reporting on an ongoing basis that you may not always have with Reg D. So the process to go through Reg A also takes longer. It could take a month to get through regulation. It could take 3 months. It really depends on the issue, the process, and the regulator at the time. I'd like to say that it's a nice, understandable process, and part of it is, but there are nuances to all of these that you have to work through. So going through this process, it's also can be a little bit more expensive to go through a Reg A process because you're dealing with retail investors, and the regulators want to make sure that we do our chores on due diligence to make sure that the individual retail investor is knowledgeable enough to know that there are people behind the investment that's being presented, that we have transparency, that we have disclosure, and we have a level of information to allow the retail investor to make an informed decision. On the Reg D side, of course, most Reg Ds are private companies, and they attract a different type of investor regarding wealth and sophistication. And therefore, with that extra knowledge or expertise that an accredited investor should have, they may be taking more of a close look at a Reg D type offering, a private company, because of that particular situation. So there are nuances between the both.
Okay, thanks for explaining that, Gerard. So now we move to so one of the big advantages of the Reg A Plus offering is that these securities can be tradable straight after the offering. And so that brings us into the next piece. So you've mentioned that the technology is similar to Uniswap. So to help people understand a bit of the background, in the crypto industry, we obviously have Bitcoin, and then later alternative blockchains came along, and we had this interoperable problem, which was, how do you get from one blockchain to the other? So the first bit of innovation was atomic swaps, where you could swap from a Bitcoin blockchain to the Ethereum blockchain, for example. The challenge for that is that you needed to match peer-to-peer. And therefore, this whole industry of decentralized exchanges emerged. But they were never liquid as a centralized exchange, because a central exchange could have market makers in the middle. They could put more liquidity in, and it could support and have an easier user experience. But then Uniswap came along, and Uniswap did things slightly differently. They created this concept of a liquidity pool, whereby people could pool together their unused tokens. And they could contribute to this pool, and they could receive yield in exchange for that. And that changed the game, where the decentralized exchanges suddenly went into the billions. Now, trying to translate this into the security token world, obviously in security token, the company and the broker and any other parties need to know exactly who is transacting in these securities. So I assume that there'll be some level of whitelisting these addresses once they've been through some kind of check and process. But then you're talking about this, the Uniswap of security tokens. So why don't you give us, we can move to the demo if you like, but also help us understand a bit of the technology behind how this translates into the security token ecosystem. I think you called it market making, Paul, or something. Why don't you let us know what you built there, Greg?
Yeah, sure. I think the technology comes from a few parts. Firstly, is the blockchain. So what we did is we implemented a quorum-based permission blockchain with 1 second block time. And the idea at that time when we did that back in 1998, quite some time ago, was try to make it green and make the blockchain faster, whereby we have control. So at that time, that was the plan. Then another critical component is actually ability to protect private key. And we find many users actually, they have no idea how to handle a wallet. Then to use the MetaMask, for example, as an example, is the process is still a little bit unconventional for people who are not familiar with crypto or blockchain. Okay, so we also fixed that problem, which you will see later is in the demo. Then also, in order to complement the problem of locking, so what we have built is we have built a passwordless the system with an app runs on iOS, Android, Mac OS, and Windows. And the idea is if you log in without a password, there's no password to remember. At the same time, we also help you to create very long and random password that you will not be able to remember. And yet, the technology allow this long and random password to be stored in a platform, but without actually storing the actual password at all. So unlike any password, the manager out there. Then in order to meet the compliance whereby documents need to be protected, if we want to use the new world, is of course we will leverage on clouds, the storage. So we actually built the encryption layer to encrypt all files that you could easily store on the Google Drive, Box, and Dropbox, and the OneDrive. Okay, so with that, then we added the primary issuance, the portion on top of the permission blockchain that you will see. We also added cap table management, whereby one of the requirements for private companies, you are able to know at any one time who are your shareholder. So there's no, so this strict name implementation, it doesn't apply to the private companies. And then we also implemented the Uniswap for secondary trading. And the idea here is to make sure is the shares available on the secondary market with instantaneous experience of buy and sell. So without much ado, I think I'm going to show you a quick 3 minutes the demo. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen now.
Yeah, just before we do that, why don't you get your demo all set up, and then Azad, after this demo, we're going to move to the Q&A section. So if anyone would like to get their questions ready, if you receive the email, then you can go to sli.do. Slido is the platform we're using for the Q&A. And in the box, just type in BF89, which is Bank to the Future Live episode 89. So BF89. And you'll be able to get your questions answered, or you can upvote other people's questions and we'll take the questions from the top. Also, there should be a link in the description, and we'll also, just after this demo, we'll pull up a QR code where you can scan and get those questions as well. So we're just going to do we'll try and take 3 to 5 minute demo, and then we're going to put the screen up and take your questions.
Sure.
Over to you, Greg.
So what you're seeing now, actually, the signing in is to the Ohanae app that's actually installed on this machine. And now I'm signing into the cap table, the management module. You will see there's no password to remember is I'm in. So this cap table, the management piece, you could then have multi-sig the implementation. Every equity token are recorded on the blockchain. So with that, we have a real-time blockchain-based cap table. Is, for example, is myself, my address, my wallet address, and the number of shares that I have. And these are live data. Okay, so
just in case anyone's not familiar with the jargon, cap table stands for capitalization table, and it's where every company has to maintain a register of who all their shareholders are, how many shares they own, and the entire history of all the transactions.
Okay, and then with the ability also to allow us, or the administrator or the transfer agent, here in this case we are also the transfer agent, that we could is to revoke a share and force transfer a share. Most importantly, I use an example will be the other day, Gerard has an issue, so we actually did a forced transfer $100 US from his account. So this will make the regulator very happy. So with that, I'm now going to jump into the platform. So as I go into the platform, so you will be able to see active offering and the secondary market. And now I have turned off the camera so I can use my camera. So I can go to secondary market, for example. So you can see the information on the top right, a brief, the description of the company. And then you could basically buy and sell. So now I want to sell one share. You will see the price is quoted immediately here is 0.979. If you agree with the price, you buy, that's it. So you will see now I buy, so I sell, for example, here, the first time that I sell, shortly after this transaction will be confirmed, you will see my balance, it go to 5271893. If now I go back to the cap table, you see the cap table is actually updated. My holding now, it becomes, hold on, where am I? Okay, 5271893, and the liquidity pool was actually has 100, and now it become 101. Hold on. Couldn't find. Okay, here you see. This is the liquidity pool. It now immediately updated to the 101. Now I can go back to the platform. I want to trade more. Now I want to buy. Okay, I want to buy. I click one. They tell me what's the price that the platform is willing to sell. So here in this case, the regulated term is the dealer is trying to sell an inventory. So he become a dealer. So he's selling one share with a buy to confirm the price 1.006. Confirm. And shortly after, done. So now my balance goes back to 5271894, and the cap table, I refresh, it will be showing 5271894, and the liquidity pool now go back to the 100. So everything is the real time, and new investor could then come in and look at the information of the company if they are not familiar with the company. Again, it's a passwordless, the login. But with this login, go to a CRM, the systems. we are able to track for example here they are offering the memorandum that need to be downloaded. When they click, actually we will be able to track first name, last name, email address, date and time, and the IP address of the person who has just downloaded this document. So the last piece here, if I go back to the platform, so I can go back to my account. I look at my portfolio. If I need to transfer cash into the platform, I just say, no, now I want to deposit the $10,000. And every user is given is a reference number. You will also see there isn't a wallet to install. There's nothing. So everything is hidden. So with this, we give you the old-fashioned PDF. You can print it out. Is to do the wire transfer. You only pay fees is to your bank, and once you converted everything into the HANA coin, there's no fee. The secondary trading has also no fees. So one more piece, if I have the time, is very quickly here is since we are the custodian by the definition of special purpose, the broker dealer, we are actually able to help you custody your private key. Here in this case will be your pass. It will be a passphrase. So here there are three trustees. Each one has a special code, and all this is actually done through our app. But if I now to copy these three code, and the actual password here is friends, and now I go back to the browser. I go to the website Ohanae.com. I go to support passphrase the recovery. I paste back the recovery code. I recover. You will see your forgotten password is now recovered. So with this, you will never forget your private key, meaning your digital asset and cash will never be compromised. Yeah, that's the end of the demo.
Okay, thanks a lot for that. I think what are we on? So we've got about probably 20 minutes to get as many questions in as we can from the community. So Azad, do you want to share the Slido board? The boards that you're about to see, you can scan that QR code and get your questions answered or upvote other people's questions. And we're going to jump straight in, Azad, with the first question.
Yep, and the first question is, private markets are dominated by Blackstone. How you deal with existing dominant players?
Gerard, you want to take this? Blackstone?
Well, our goal is to work with issuers who are looking to go mostly the Reg A plus route, and working with them as we build the investor base within this community so that it is a very efficient way of bringing these issuers into the Ohanae space to allow not only the issuance of their securities, but also the secondary trading that takes place, which can be done once you own the shares. We find that if we build this up the way we believe we can, one of the problems with a lot of Reg A plus companies and their shares is that they languish in the private sector, in that there's no interaction of players except possibly on some of the lesser known OTC markets, where these companies' shares are languishing for the most part. We think that through the Ohanae ecosystem, we can build a more active trading market, and that would actually help these issuers because the investors will be much more happy with their investment if they know that there is somewhat more liquidity that goes along with these issuance of shares.
Yeah, I have one thing to add is actually in our business plan, we have the desire to onboard in the next 4 years up to 5% of the better quality OTC Reg A plus company to be traded on the ATS.
Okay, next question is, why do you want to use your own stablecoin and not USDC or other existing ones?
Okay, I think there are two parts to this. One of the special purpose, the dealer definition is actually the able to safeguard the customer's cash. In order to safeguard customer cash, we do need the reserve to be deposited into the broker dealer's bank account. And USDC, True USD, Paxo, Tether will not apply to this. Also, on the technical side, it's also because this is a permission blockchain, we will not be able to run USDC on the platform. We still need to do atomic swap-like integration. So, but the real answer is really is the regulation doesn't allow us to apply that.
What metrics have you used to establish what feels like quite a high valuation at such an early stage?
Oh, I think this has to fall back to our exit strategy. Our current plan is actually do one round of the funding. Right now, we are doing this private placement round based on Reg D and Reg S. And immediately after this round, we will do Regulation A plus or Series B round, whereby every cent that we raise will be deposited into the bank account to mint the stablecoin. Once that is done, the model allow us to be self-sufficient, and we have the desire to do a direct listing on the Nasdaq around 2025, 2026. So that is the current plan. What we did, then we work backward to come to these valuations. And we do have a detailed, there's the valuation, the model built. We're happy to share that.
How many employees do you have? Where are they based? Singapore, US?
We have a small team, about 5 full-time employees, and every other people full-time employee but work as a contractor. So we have teams in Ukraine, in San Francisco, in Singapore, here, New Jersey, everywhere. So maybe you collectively add them together. We do have a virtual team, about 40 people, but 5 full-time employees who actually go to the office.
How do you view Securities? Is it a competitor? What's your USP?
Securities is one of the first. We will not see them as a true competitor, but a competitor. Primary reason why I say that Securities was incorporated earlier than us. So we are actually looking at what they do, looking at some of the shortcomings that they acknowledge, and we kind of bypass those things. And one of the differences is Securities started off as a platform. The revenue, the model is based on charging a fee to use a platform. We do it differently, that our revenue model is not based on software, but our revenue is based on a percentage of the success fee as a broker-dealer. So that's a primary difference. Not sure if they are also in the process to apply to become a special purpose the broker-dealer, but I do know they acquired is a broker-dealer. They actually have a standalone license as a transfer agent. So the other thing is you come back is the private market is actually about 2/3 of the combined private and the public market based on the SEC report in the 20 is in the year 2000 or 2019. So private market access is about $2.9 trillion. So definitely there are 3,000 plus broker the dealer in the US. Definitely there will be a handful who will be qualified as a special purpose the broker dealer. Yes, we compete, but I don't think the market is so small that you cannot accommodate a few. I will guarantee you there will not be the Securities at us, but a few others. Yeah, but the market is so big, and just like you have the Goldman Sachs, you have the Nomura, and you have the JP, the Morgan, and everyone coexists.
What is the purpose to tokenize the shares if they are securities and the investor information is attached to the shares? If you lose your key for a security token, do you lose your investment?
Yeah, so I just did the demo. So this question is answered nicely, that we go through great pain to make sure that your private key cannot be stolen. In the event that your private key is really being compromised, we have a way, which is proprietary way to actually allow you to create a new private key, and using a method internally, we call it proxy, and able to point back to those digital assets that you own on our blockchain. So this is our presentation to the FINRA, that we technically are able to demonstrate the users, the private key will never be compromised. So this is one of the strengths that we boldly claim as compared to the competition, and the technology is patented.
What's Ohanae's view on interoperability of security token platforms?
For today, since our implementation is based on the permission, the blockchain, tune it specifically to comply with the new requirement as a special purpose, the broker-dealer, we are not compatible, nor do they be a need to be compatible. It's because is the regulations say you must control everything. So in order to control everything, permission blockchain is the way to go, not public blockchain. And public blockchain on Ethereum, for example, is today one of the biggest problem is fees. Is the fees per transaction is so high, and we don't have any of those issues. So I think the security token platform is kind of slightly different from special purpose broker dealer. Special purpose, the dealer can only handle that is the equity based the security token, while security the token platform technically could also tokenize that. They can tokenize the digital asset that today is classified as a security, but 1-2 years down the road could be converted back into a utility token. So that is not the space we cover.
Which blockchain do you use? Could a private investor have an account on your platform whereby you would take care of the custody? Are there custodian fees?
Like I said, we implemented a permission blockchain based on the quorum with IBFT, the consensus for fault tolerant. So we have the 25 nodes. At any one time, we can afford up to 8 failure, 8 out of the 25, and we will not control more than 8 nodes. So to solve the problem of the 51% attack, anyone could sub an account on the platform to perform KYC. There's no fee, and and the custody we will be providing based on the specification outline in the SEC statement. So we are able to protect your private key. We are able to safeguard your digital asset, the security, and cash based on our implementation. And there's no fees charged to the users.
What's your view on Stoker.io? Is it a competitor?
I'm not familiar with that. Sorry. Are they based in US?
Stock is a platform. I believe they're based out of Europe, and they're doing security tokens based upon the Liquid blockchain, which is an implementation on top of Bitcoin.
Okay.
So I'd say these are all in the same landscape. So you probably list that as a competitor.
Okay.
I think the jurisdiction is important because every country has their set of the security law that companies must follow, the broker-dealer must follow. So once you are not in that territory or the country, you don't compete, virtually don't compete.
Okay, the last one's more of a statement and just requires your feedback or your opinion on their opinion. This concept all depends on the security tokens being able to inherit the ability for non-qualified investors to buy those tokens from the underlying regulation A+ examination. Your thoughts on that?
The answer is no. Actually, the platform is designed to handle regulation, crowdfunding, Reg D and Reg S. For Reg D and Reg S offering, all we need to do is to make sure the investor every one of them are accredited, the investor, so that can be programmed into the smart contract. As far as Reg CF goes, we need a separate SEC, the FINRA application to operate as a funding the portal. We have no intention to participate in that space at this time, but to answer your question, Reg D, Reg S, Reg A+, we will be participating, and we will implement on the platform raise as well as the traditional raise, because we believe that's the most efficient way to help the investor realize the funding goal.
Okay, so that's going to do it. We are on the hour exactly. I just want to thank the Ohanae team for coming on to answer investors' questions and give us more of an overview and demo. We'll take this video and we'll add it to the forum and the pitch so that anybody that missed this can also return to it. If you have any further questions that you would like to ask of the Ohanae team, then there is on the pitch, if you're a qualifying investor, you're able to jump into the discussion and they will be answering the questions throughout this time. So that's going to do it for this episode. That's episode 89 of Bank to the Future Live. And we'll see you next week for episode 90. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Simon.